So, good afternoon, everyone, and so welcome to the afternoon session today. And the first speaker is Mitesh Kapra. So, Mitesh is my colleague in the computer science department at IIT Madras, and does a lot of really exciting work on natural language processing and deep learning for NLP. And he's going to talk today about incorporating background knowledge for building conversation systems.
Thanks, Hari. So this is work done by my students. I'm presenting on their behalf. So this is about conversation systems, right? And conversation systems is something that all of us are aware of. All of us have used various bots out there like Cortana, Siri, Google Allo, and also have had our fun while doing so, right? And maybe you could converse for 1 or 2 turns, and then you know that these bots can't really engage you in a long-term conversation, right? So now, if you just look at the history of bots, right? So the earliest bot which was popular was this Eliza, which was around 1966, right? And what it used to do is, it used to just play on the human's own utterances, just paraphrase them a bit and output it as the answer, right? So, for example, if you look at the third sentence there, right? So, they are always bugging us about something or the other. And then the bot just asks, can you think of something, a specific example, right? So it's just very templated, very fixed responses based on what the user has already said. And then from there on, people started moving to defining this structure around conversation, that you have an utterance. You need to understand what the utterance is. So that's where the natural language understanding part comes. And then once you have that, you need to track the state of the dialogue. So much of this was from a very goal-oriented view, that you want to use a conversation system either for booking some tickets or for achieving some end goal, buying a product or so on, in which case tracking the state of the dialogue makes sense, right? That right now I'm talking about the product features, then I'll move on to the product price, and then probably I'll move on to the delivery mode or the payment mode and so on, right? So these are the different states that you would typically have in a conversation, and you would want to track these states. And finally, once you have done that, what you have at the end is natural language generation, where you could again give templated responses, right? So when this architecture of a dialogue system, initially where it was proposed, right, most of these 3 components which are there, they were all rule-based systems, right? So again, apply some very simple rules on the user utterance to understand what he or she is trying to say. Then again, apply rules to find the state of the conversation, and then again apply rules to generate the sentence. Now, of all of this, the thing that I want to impress in today's talk is that while natural language understanding is also hard, the hardest part probably is the natural language generation part, right? And the reason I say this is, today, despite this widespread success of deep learning or deep neural networks in NLP, still natural language generation is one problem where there are a lot of gaps, in the sense that if you look at the outputs generated by state-of-the-art neural network-based systems, they are still lacking both semantically and syntactically. What I mean by that is, what I mean by syntactically poor is that the grammar is not good. It won't look natural to a native speaker of that language. And what I mean by semantically is that it does not convey the right meaning also. Even if I ignore the grammar and try to parse the meaning of that, the meaning is also not adequate, right? So this is a very, very hard problem to solve, right? And then eventually from rules, people moved on to data-driven systems, right? So now what you do there is you collect a lot of data, a lot of utterances and annotations on what the intention of the utterance was, whether the person was asking about a ticket or about the destination or about the source or the price and so on, right? And then once you have that, again use some data to find the state of the dialogue, and then again, based on existing responses that you have seen in previous conversations, try to learn a model that, given this input and the current state, what should the output be, right? So all of this was data driven. And this was around 2011, 2013, right? Or so you could say that from 2007 onwards, almost a decade or so. And then once deep learning came in, around 2014-15, people started ignoring all of these annotations and so on, and they said, just give me a sequence of utterances and response, whatever domain that you converse in. If you're trying to book railway tickets, or if you're trying to book air tickets or movie tickets, or if you're trying to converse with a bank agent, just give me a set of utterances and the responses. Don't explicitly annotate what the intention was. Don't explicitly tell me what the state was, whether this was about account opening or closing or what. Just give me a bunch of utterances and responses, and I'll try to automatically learn from there, right? So that's where what end-to-end systems or deep learning based systems were designed to do. Now, one issue with that, right? So now one issue with the data-driven setup is that you need a lot of data to be able to build these systems. And over the past many years, right, multiple data sets have been proposed for dialogue or conversation systems. And there are 60 plus such data sets out there. And this paper, which is cited here, there's a very good survey of all the different data sets available out there, right? And a few popular ones, at least popular because in terms of the size that they have, the number of utterances that they have, are listed here. One is based on movie scripts. So what they have done is taken two things. One is subtitles or dialogues which are there in the movie. So you could think of that as conversations and try to build a model from there. Or you could even take the actual scripts of the movies, which are also available publicly for many movies, and then try to learn from these utterances and responses. So if you think of a typical machine learning or supervised machine learning setup, then the setup that you have there is you're given an input and you want to produce the output based on this input. So in this case, the input is all the past utterances that you have given, and the output is going to be the next utterance which is present in your data, right? And similar widespread or wide-scale data sets which are there are also based on Twitter, which has around 1.3 million utterances, and the Ubuntu forum, which has around 185 million utterances, right? So all of these are very, very large data sets which are scraped from the web, okay? They of course contain a lot of noise, but they also, because of their size, right, they enable the development of these end-to-end systems. Now I have a commentary on this, and that's the purpose of this talk, to kind of point out the flaw in using such data sets for conversation and what is the way ahead. That's the purpose of this talk. So I'll come to that. So because of the availability of these data sets, I mean, your models are only going to be as good as the data sets, or the kind of models that you could actually try out are only going to be as good as the data sets that you have. So if your data set is a collection of input-output utterances, then the only models that you can think of is something known as the encoder-decoder models or the input-output models, where you take the input, you try to encode it, try to come up with some hidden representation for that input, and then try to decode an output from there, right? So this way of modeling dialogue, or this way of thinking about dialogues, essentially says that a dialogue is just you say 5 sentences, I listen to them, and then I speak the next sentence. It completely ignores the importance of background knowledge that we have, right? For example, if you and I are conversing about movies, of course my response has to be in the context of what you have said in the past, but apart from that, I'll also use a lot of background knowledge that I have. For example, I would have watched this movie, I would have read about the plot of that movie, I would have also read some reviews about this movie, I would have read some comments on Reddit. All of these web sources, rich web sources which have a lot of information about this talk, about this topic, I would have read them at some point, and they're somehow there in my mind as background knowledge, right? Even though they don't appear in the current conversation. The user is only saying a few things, and I'm just relying on that as a model. When I say I'm just saying this model just relies on the user utterances to produce the next utterance. And this is a fundamental flaw, because this is not how humans converse. Humans also use a lot of background knowledge which is missing from this diagram, right? And of course this also has this other variants which are known as encoder-decoder with attention. So there what you do is, if I want to produce the output or the next utterance, I'll produce it one word at a time, and for every word I'll try to pay attention to the most important words in the input. Okay, that's how the encoder-decoder with attention works. So this is just an add-on on the basic model, but here again you're completely ignoring the external context or the background knowledge that typically humans use for making these conversations, right? So this is although there are 60 plus data sets available there which are widely being used to build these systems, none of these data sets have an explicit marking from the conversation to a background knowledge, that I said this because I had read about this somewhere, or because this document says something about this movie from which I am bringing in my knowledge, right? And now if you think about how, if you want to build, say, a customer care, automatic customer care, or if you want to automatically reply to queries on Amazon about products, right? The way it should happen is, on the Amazon web page itself, you have information about the product description, you have information about various fact tables about the product, you have a lot of reviews available. Whatever questions if you ask, right, most of them are answerable from this background knowledge. But you're not being able to use that. What this model is saying, that just look at all the questions and now try to answer them without relying on any of these background knowledge which is available to you. So that's not a very wise way of producing conversations. We should also incorporate background knowledge somehow, right? So that's the purpose of this talk, to use external sources available on the web for conversation, right? So this is how humans actually converse. When two humans are talking, the other human may not be actually referring to Wikipedia or Facebook or any of these things in the conversation, right? During the conversation, I just say some sentences. I don't tell you that I was talking about something from Facebook or reviews or so on. But in the background, all of this is happening because I had read something about it on Wikipedia, something about it on newspapers, on social media and so on, and that is why I am producing these utterances, right? So this external knowledge has to be fed to the machines also. So with this motivation, we wanted to incorporate external knowledge in conversations, and there was already some work, but to a very limited extent, and I'll tell you to what extent it was, right? For example, goal-oriented systems where the chat is not just a normal chit-chat. So for example, you and I can just chat without any purpose, right? We could just talk about various things, likes, dislikes and so on. That's not a goal-oriented conversation. A goal-oriented conversation is typically which happens in the business setting when you and I are trying to achieve some goal. Your goal is to probably sell a product to me, my goal is to buy a product from you, or my goal is to make a reservation or anything of that sort, right? So such systems are known as goal-oriented conversation systems, and the other type of systems are the non-goal-oriented conversation systems. So there was some work in the past where if you want to converse about Ubuntu, so now the goal here is you are facing some problem and you're trying to troubleshoot it by conversing with someone, right? Now during this conversation, a lot of utterances are being exchanged, but it's quite likely that whatever you are asking about is present in some Ubuntu man pages, because if it's about Ubuntu, there's very high likelihood that this could serve as some background knowledge, and even if the other person is answering something, it's more likely that he or she has actually referred to these man pages earlier. So why not explicitly incorporate that, right? So that's the idea here. Similarly, if you have an external knowledge graph, for example, if you're conversing about countries or presidents and prime ministers or politics, and if there's an external knowledge graph which says that for this country, this is the prime minister or president, or if these are the political parties within this country and these are the alliances between the political parties, such information would be stored in a knowledge graph. So why not augment the conversation with this knowledge graph? So what I mean by augment is that instead of giving the model the input which is only the utterances, why not give it this additional input which is also this knowledge graph available in that domain, or some documents available from that domain in the form of man pages, right? And similar things have also been tried in the non-goal-oriented setup, where you just crawl a lot of facts from the web and feed this to your model along with the current set of utterances which is already seen, right? So now the problem with all of these works is that the data sets which were available, they were just a sequence of utterances and responses, and now you are forcefully trying to fit some external knowledge to it, right? You are saying that, okay, if you're talking about Ubuntu, just take this man pages and you might find some information there, right? What we want is that the conversations should be constructed in a way that they directly come from some of these resources available from that domain, right? And it will become clear once I go to the next slide and explain next few slides and explain what we want to do, right? So this is what we want to do create a new data set for conversation systems which learns to converse from various resources available online, right? So these are the phases that we had in our data collection. First, we wanted to build this for a specific domain, which is the movie domain, and we can also extend it to other domains by drawing similar analogy or parallels between the movie domain and other domains, and I'll do that at a later stage. So what we did is we curated a list of popular movies from IMDb. Then we collected background knowledge about these movies. The first thing that we did was went to Wikipedia and collected all sorts of data about this movie, like the plots of the movie, the various critique section of the movie, right, with the reception of the movie, what did critics have to say about this movie and so on. So we just collected all those snippets. So this you can imagine is all fuel for conversation, right? If you have all this information, you could have a meaningful conversation about the movie. Then the next thing we did is, we also collected some opening sentences or some external knowledge about these movies from Amazon Mechanical Turk. So Amazon Mechanical Turk is a crowdsourcing platform where you can upload tasks and people will respond to them. So the task that we uploaded is, we asked people, what is your favorite scene from the movie X? And they said something about it, right? So now this also becomes a conversation point and we can insert it at suitable points inside the conversation. And finally, once we collected all this data, we also did a manual verification to verify whether the chats are coherent or not and so on, right? So in all, we collected around close to 9,000 dialogues, which had a total of 91,000 utterances belonging to 921 different movies. and these utterances came from a total of 9,000 resources and were reasonably long in terms of the sentence length as well as the overall chat length, right? And let's skip this. So this is what our conversation looks like, right? So these are all the all the resources that I was referring to. So you have the plot of the movie, which is again crawled from the web, either Wikipedia or IMDb. Then you have various reviews of the movie available on IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and so on. Then you have some comments about the movie which are available on Reddit and various other places. And a fact table which is again available on Wikipedia, right? Now if you look at all this, these are all very important or interesting conversation points of the movie, right? You could pick up sentences from here and try to have a conversation about the movie. So the setup that we used is, there are two speakers. Speaker 1 actually makes a sentence and the speaker 2 is actually constrained to reply based on one of these resources. He can't generate his own sentence. He or she has to pick up a sentence from one of these resources. So you can see the first speaker said, what do you think about the movie? And the second speaker actually responded by picking up something from the comments. He said the movie was brilliant. Then speaker 1 again responded so that the conversation continues in a coherent manner. And then again speaker 2 responded by picking up something suitably from the comments. So you can see that it doesn't glamorize or glorify war. And also added some addition to it so that the overall sentences or the utterances look coherent, right? So now the difference from existing datasets is that in existing datasets you only have the central part. You don't have an explicit linking to the background knowledge from which these utterances are coming, right? Whereas when humans converse, we are actually reproducing sentences from various background knowledge that we have encountered in the past, right? So this dataset allows you to explicitly model the way humans converse in specific domains, right? And the whole point is that if you can pick up sentences directly from these resources, then you can do away with this very critical and difficult task of natural language generation, right? So now if you look at it, all these sentences that you're picking up from these documents, because these documents are from legitimate sources, these sentences would be all syntactically as well as semantically correct. But if you try to replace this by a natural language generation engine, then the sentences would neither be syntactically nor semantically correct, right? Typically, NLG systems don't produce very coherent output in terms of syntax and semantics, right? But this bypasses that problem. So this is what the dataset looks like. Now, of course, the question is that if you are forcing the people or the workers to pick up sentences from one of these resources, then the resulting chat, is it guaranteed to be coherent or not, right? That's one important question to answer. So we looked at that. So we did an analysis. Once the chats were collected, we used several metrics to identify how good the chat was, right? So we had these evaluation metrics, intelligibility, coherence, 2% chat, on topic, and grammar. So I'll explain what each of these means. So intelligibility means that is that chat intelligible, right? I mean, if a person is reading the entire conversation, does he or she understand anything from the chat, or is just gibberish that two people have just got together and randomly picking up sentences from the resources and there is no intelligence in what is being said? Coherence is something similar where every response is actually coherent with the utterance that was said before it, right? And the second thing is, does it look like a 2% chat? So is it like a natural 2% chat, or it looks very synthetic a 2% chat? And is the chat on topic? So we started talking about movies. So are we talking about movies still, or have we just digressed to politics or something very random? And as the grammar, all the utterances, because there was some stitching involved, we are picking up sentences from resources and then adding some additional stuff to make it coherent. So because of this, were the chats still grammatically correct or were they becoming incorrect? So that's the other thing that we wanted to evaluate. And in all these metrics, we found that on a scale of 1 to 5, the evaluation was pretty high. That means all of these metrics were able to score much higher. So this dataset in effect contains well-grounded conversations which are grounded in some background knowledge, and this allows you to take a very different view at conversation. Instead of treating it as a sequence of utterances and responses, now you can treat it as a sequence of utterances and responses augmented by background knowledge. Okay. So now what are the methods? So we wanted to try. So my whole point was that natural language generation is very hard. So how do you do something alternate, and does it actually work better than natural language generation? So now for natural language generation, and I'll just not go into the details of these models, I'll just explain the intuition behind them. So there's something known as a hierarchical recurrent encoder-decoder. So what that means is you have these utterances, which is a sequence of sequences. Why do I call it a sequence of sequences? Because every utterance is a sequence of words and you have a sequence of such utterances. For any kind of sequences, a recurrent neural network is one model that you can use. So we use a recurrent neural model, and since we have a sequence of sequences, it's a hierarchical recurrent neural network because the lower level models the sequence of words and the higher level then models the sequence of utterances. So at the end of this, the leftmost or the rightmost vector that you see in the middle layer, that's the encoding of the entire set of utterances that you have seen so far. Now using these utterances, which is all the context given to the model, you want to produce a response. So this model is a vanilla model which does not actually use any background knowledge, and this is the state of the art of dialogue systems before we propose this data set. So this does not have any background knowledge in it. So it just relies on the previous utterance to produce the next utterance. And the point is it cannot do this efficiently. So that's what we wanted to evaluate, whether it can still do better or not. The other model that we used is something known as a copy or generate model. So I'll explain what that means. Here again, you have a document. You're going to encode your document. So when I say document, these are all the resources that were available to us. And you're going to come up with one finite representation for this document. Now based on this representation, you're going to try to predict what the output should be. So what you see on the left hand side is trying to find what are the important parts in this document which are relevant to produce the next response at this phase. And your decoder is trying to produce the next response. It is trying to do this one word at a time. And at every word, it has a fixed vocabulary, which is the English vocabulary, and it has to produce the most important or most relevant word from the vocabulary at that point of time, right? So that's what this model tries to do. And the second thing that this model tries to do, so this is the p-gen, which means the probability to generate the next word. The other interesting thing that this model tries to do is it knows that since you have a document and you're likely to pick up many words from the document as it is, why not also see if I can directly copy from the document? So don't generate every time. If possible, also copy from the document. So the second set of arrows that you see, that is the model trying to predict that I should copy from the document that you have given me, and this is the word that I should copy. Right? So you can model all of this as an input-output pairs that you have x and y, and then you could have a function which is a recurrent neural network to approximate the relation between x and y. Okay. So this is the other model that we tried. And then finally what we did is there's something known as, there's something known as span prediction, right? So span prediction is something which is popular in the question answering literature. So what a span prediction model does is, given a document and a question, it tries to find the span in the document which answers the question. So a simple example of this would be, suppose you have a document on Mahatma Gandhi. That document talks about various things about Mahatma Gandhi, including where he was born, where he was educated, and so on. And now if you ask a question, where was Mahatma Gandhi born? The task of the model is to highlight that part of the article or those words in the article which point to the birthplace. Okay, so that's what a span prediction model means. It tries to predict the span in the document where the answer lies. Now our task, even though it's different from question answering, it's very similar to span prediction because the response is actually coming from a document and we need to point to that span in the document where the answer lies. And the advantage of modeling it this way is that since the document is syntactically and semantically correct because it's coming from a legitimate source, you will be able to generate better responses in terms of syntax and semantics, right? So that's the idea of modeling this as a span prediction model. And what I want to show you is that you have these generation-based models, which were the first two models that I showed, which are natural language generation models. And then you have the span prediction model, which try to just predict spans from the document. And since generation is a harder problem, I should be able to show you that the latter model, which is a span prediction model, should work better than the generation models, right? So that's the purpose. So when we evaluated this on our data set, there are a lot of numbers here. I just want you to focus on the three red numbers. So the first model is the natural language generation model, which I was saying is a hard task, and it gives you roughly an accuracy of 5%. I'm saying roughly because it's a different metric called BLEU, but you could relate it to accuracy. So what it says is that of the 5% of the words produced in the utterance are actually correct. If you look at the other model, which was in addition to generation, also trying to copy words from the source document, it is doing slightly better because now it has better chance of getting the syntax and semantics right. And the last model, where we try to model this as a span prediction model and directly pick up sentences from the document instead of generating it, is doing the best, right? So it is significantly better than the two generation models, and that's why the conclusion is that natural language generation is very hard, and instead you should try to respond using various web resources that are already available to you, right? So what next? Finding the right resource is important, and so instead of just trying to pick up spans from all the resources given to you, why not first try to predict the right resource and then pick up the response from that? Then cross-attention mechanisms are useful. So what that means is that looking at the response or looking at the previous utterances and then paying attention to the important words in the document, at the same time looking at the document and then paying attention to different words in the utterances, both of these are important. So you should have models which can capture that. And generation models are actually become more human-like if you try to model them as span prediction models, right? So that's all I had. I'll just end here. Mike.
Questions?
Hello, sir. It was like a nice way to present this problem. I have one question. Does the model is only an agreement model and fact delivery model? What I mean to say that, suppose take a movie, The Red Sparrow, and say the user said this was a really thrilling movie. So the system will find this like utterances where thrilling was said, and it will say, yeah, it was a really thrilling movie. Now the next sentence, the user will say, Jennifer's acting was awesome. So again, it will agree to that, yeah, she acted great and all. Now third sentence will be, I couldn't have predicted the ending. It was like awesome. Again, it will agree. Now the last question will, the user will say, what's your rating of the movie? Now the system has already agreed to all these three parts, and it has said positive things about it, but the movie rated on IMDb is bad. Movie's rating is around 6 and pretty average rating. So now what it will say about the rating? If it's go towards the fact, it will disagree to what it has been saying previously.
Very good. So that's a very interesting question. I'll come back to one slide. And so just to summarize your question, right? So what you're trying to say is that can we ensure that the bot is coherent throughout in its response, right? That is one. The second question is that you don't want a bot which just agrees with whatever the user is saying, because that's a useless bot. The user is saying something and you just say, oh yes, I agree with it, right? So both these things will not happen, and I'll tell you why. So remember that these resources that we have, these are comments and reviews. We have both positive reviews and negative reviews also. So if the user says this was a movie which is awesome, there might be some negative review. The reviewer says that the direction or the acting was awesome. Okay. Now, if that was not the case and there was some negative review which says that the acting was pathetic, the bot can also pick up from there and revert in a negative tone, right? That I don't agree with you. This particular scene, the acting was very bad, because people write to that level of details in these Reddit and reviews, right? So that's the whole point of relying on these resources. So that's one. It's not going to be just be a subservient bot. It will also disagree with the user when required. The second is this personality preserving, right? That now if you have said, if you did not agree with the acting, did the directing, then finally don't give me a rating of 6. That's an important point, and that's where this coherence comes in, right? So one of the things that we wanted to evaluate in this is that the bot should be consistent throughout in all its responses. It should not deviate from what it had said earlier. So you can't say acting was good at some point and then later on come back and say acting was bad, right? So both this score that you see here, 4.33, actually was to measure that. So it's on a scale of 1 to 5, it's pretty high.
Last question.
Hi. So I see one of the background informations that you're using is the plot of the movie, right? And this is, I imagine this is currently working on the movie domain.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, if one of the users is actually, say, putting out a summary of the plot, okay, I was wondering which model would actually perform better, the natural language generation model or the span model, because in that case, he would actually end up using his own words to summarize the plot, but at the same time, you want the accuracy to be higher, so you want some sentences and some words from the plot to come into the response. So what do you think your
Yeah, so the
approach would
trade-off
be?
there is to use this intermediate copy and generate model.
Okay.
I presented 3 models. The middle model was kind of a trade-off.
Okay.
It tries to generate, also copy the words from the document, right? It has both these options.
Okay.
But even those models, they are very incoherent in the sentences that they produce. So the state of the art of natural language generation is not very good unless you have tons of data to model that problem.
Okay.
Right? So if wherever possible, you should try to pick up answers from some other sources rather than trying to generate on your own.
Okay.
So let's thank Mitesh again. So the final speaker of this symposium is JP, and I invite Nosher to introduce JP.
I know. He knows too much about me. I can't do that.